I want to share a few opening remarks with you. Did you know that Westminster is one of Colorado's fastest growing communities, coming in number 8 on Colorado's largest cities list? Now, I may have that stat wrong, because according to the mayor, it might have been higher than that, but 8 in the top 10. Okay, top 10. Money Magazine also recently ranked Westminster as one of the top 25 cities to live in nationwide. Think about that for a second. There's a lot of cities out there. Westminster is one of the top 25, which I think is quite impressive. Westminster has matured not only in population, but as a city overall. Today, I'm honored to present our guest, the Mayor of Westminster, Mayor Herb Atchison. Herb has lived in Westminster for 38 years and is a dedicated servant to his community. He was elected to City Council in 1997. In 2013, he was elected mayor and was re-elected in 2017. Previously, he had served 16 years as chairman of the city's Special Permit and Licensing Board. Currently, he serves on the board of directors for the Westminster Legacy Foundation. He is the chairman of DRCOG, which is the Denver Regional Council of Governments, and a past chairman of the board of directors for the North Area Transit Alliance. Additionally, he serves on the US 36 Mayors County Commissioners Coalition, the Executive Committee for the Metro Mayors Caucus, the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District Board of Directors, and was appointed by the governor as a member of the Regional Air Quality Control Board. In sum, he has a lot of experience and has been a public servant for over 38 years. Herb has worked tirelessly to implement changes in local politics. Westminster has become a safer city. The Westminster Police Department is now fully staffed for the first time in years, ensuring a safe, family-friendly metro area. He has been devoted to developing Westminster's downtown stretch into a unique community that will both please current residents and attract new ones. Through the opening of the commuter rail train, Westminster will be more accessible to the rest of Denver. The transit system has experienced great success with its daily B-line activity doubling initial projections. Mayor Atchison has an approachable leadership style, combined with a small business background and forward-thinking vision, which I believe is what makes him a truly great mayor. We are lucky to have a true servant to the public taking charge and guiding the city of Westminster. It is my honor to introduce to you all my friend, Mayor Herb Atchison.
Most of the time I get hollered at if I come up here with it on. If I take it off, then they want to know where it went. So let me start with this. First of all, Brian, thank you for the Opportunity Coalition. You and Kyle have done a great job putting this together. But I'm going to leave you with a couple of things at the end. One of those is going to be workforce housing. The other one is going to be transportation. But most of what I'm going to talk about tonight is not just about the city of Westminster, but what we do here as a region. And that's a big part of what I spend a lot of time doing. But I will have room for questions at the end, and there is no question that is off limits. So think about what you have. You can ask anything you want, and I will try to answer it. If not, I'll give it to Brian. Next slide, please. Okay. Some statistics that we talk about on a regular basis. Is anybody in this room think that Colorado is not growing? If you are, I have a little thing for you. By the year 2040, just over 20 years from now, more than 7.8 million people will call Colorado home. That's an additional 3 million people joining us in our great state. It's about a 45% increase of where we are now. As a mayor and as a regional partner, it scares the heck out of me of what we're going to do with all of them, and where we're going to put them, and will they afford to be here? Will companies continue to look at us in the same way they do a year ago or 5 years from now? Because we have to have places for people to live. And being involved in economic development in not only my city, but here in the state, that is a big question we're asked by every company that looks at the state of Colorado. It used to be one of the first things was, how are the school districts? Today is, how will I get my employees to work? And where will I find them? Because we are very much a destination of relocation of corporate headquarters, international headquarters, and small business companies. While we welcome growth and are fortunate enough to be in such a strong state of economy, recovering more quickly than most, because as we've gone into recessions, Colorado has typically been one of the last to go, but we've also been one of the first to recover. And that makes a big difference when people look at us. As we pause as a city, what will it look like in the future? Can we make it work? And most importantly, how do we plan wisely for the future of where we're headed? One of the things that we talked about from the city of Westminster is that how do we look forward? How do we plan? And how do we highlight a vision? So one of the things that we did a few years ago is to sit down and said, we as a city council have to be able to articulate where we're going and what we think we're going to do. So what you see up here is the vision of the city of Westminster that was formed a couple of years ago. Let me highlight some words in here and then I'll come back to them. Westminster is the next urban center of the Colorado Front Range. It is a vibrant, inclusive, creative, and well-connected city. People will choose Westminster because it is a dynamic community with distinct neighborhoods, quality educational opportunities, a resilient local economy that includes a spectrum of jobs, diverse, integrated housing, shopping, cultural, entertainment, and restaurants. It embraces the outdoors and one of the most sustainable cities in America. A lot of interesting words in that vision. I'd like to remind you to think about a couple of these. Urban, inclusive, resilient, diverse, and sustainable. 5 to 10 years ago, we probably would not have used these words in a vision for the city. Sustainable, what does that mean? What does it mean to be urban? Even today, some folks in Westminster have a tough time with what that means. So how as a city do we make this vision a reality? Those are some ambitious ideas, but we now have to get on with them. At the same time we wrote our new vision, we implemented a strategic plan that addresses the implementation of the vision through 6 key goals. Visionary leadership, and I won't read these, but I will tell you that most of them are starting from the top left all the way to the bottom right. It's not a priority. We have to do them all. It's just a matter of which one we're working on at what time of the day. I'd like you to pay particular attention to the number 1 though, visionary leadership, effective governance, and proactive regional cooperation. This is a key of how successful Westminster is and how we will be successful going in the future. These are the keys to being able to achieve our next 5 goals is number 1. We could not do any of these without proactive regional cooperation and without partnerships. Westminster is proactively engaged with our partners to advance the common interest of the region. Success is rarely what's called a one-man job. We don't do it by ourselves. I have a quote here from Bill Gates that I'd like to read to you. It's pretty straightforward, pretty short. Our success has really been based on partnerships from the very beginning. And I think Bill Gates has turned that around to a lot to where he has partnerships internationally, worldwide, and they continue to work together and they're successful. It's through key partnerships across the city and across the region that we have been able to realize success in the projects we have taken on thus far in Westminster. From the Westminster Station to the revitalization and creation of a downtown, our affordable housing initiatives. And today I want to share with you even our fast-paced world with increasing demands and sometimes contentious viewpoints. Building relationships is the key to success. No one is an island among themselves. It is through partnerships that Westminster has been able to set ambitious goals and work toward a vision that positions Westminster as that next urban center of the Front Range. Let me ask you to take a look at the one and only station on the B line today. As Brian mentioned, this was an early start. It's the first station to open on the B line and the last station that will be open for a number of years. When this was first being constructed, RTD projected 500 to 600 riders a day. We're almost triple that, and the demand continues to grow. Unfortunately, we can't get any more stations open for a while. RTD's initial plan for this was a station that included a surface parking field east of the station, a bus facility, a vehicle drop-off directly north of the platform area, and a utilitarian pedestrian tunnel under the tracks because the tracks are split by a big park area and part of our new development. Access to the pedestrian tunnel from the commuter platform was via a 355-foot bridge, which is on the other side of what you're seeing today, and that went to a surface parking. There was no direct access to the station, and it had to be through part of unincorporated Adams County. So rather than accepting a parking garage that was full of asphalt and no structured parking, what we said was, let us build it. Give us the money you were going to invest in it, and we will take and increase it. So through partnerships, we turned around and we built a parking structure with access roads, bus loading and unloading facilities, and the transit plaza on the north side of the rail corridor. So what you're seeing now is a tunnel that is on the north side, connecting us to the east side, and that bridge that we talked about is on the other side. We've worked diligently with our partners for over 8 years to ensure the rail station supports the revitalization of the surrounding neighborhood, and that neighborhood is both unincorporated Adams County and the city of Arvada. Multiple projects at the site have played a role in activating the station, from a station platform, a parking garage, the extension of Westminster Station Drive, a regional park. Now that regional park, although owned by the city of Westminster, is built in a partnership. It's a 42-acre park. It's one of the largest parks outside of the Confluence Park in Denver. It's open to everyone. It's a regional park. And even though we funded it with a number of partners, everyone will be there. It's also a drainage system along Little Dry Creek. As a result of these partnerships and this collaboration, more than $76 million has been invested in the Westminster Station area, nearly $40 million of that coming from the city. But some of our partners were Adams County, the Colorado Department of Transportation, the Regional Transportation District called RTD, Urban Drainage and Flood Control District, and the Denver Regional Council of Governments. All of those are partners in putting this together, bringing transportation, workforce housing, outdoor recreation to areas that did not have it. We did not have a park of any kind in the southern part of our city that was anywhere near what we will have there in the next couple of years. The commuter rail is expected to bring more people to the area and spark more development and jobs in the vicinity of the station. And again, as I mentioned, we're almost triple the ridership that RTD has projected. Rail service is not the only mode of transportation at Westminster Station. Already home to 2 connecting RTD bus lines, our focus is to create an area that is friendly to all types: bicycle, pedestrian, bus, rail, and automobile. This is truly a multimodal area. We're quite proud of what we've created, and an important part of this, I would ask you to come join us sometime. Whether you're starting from Denver Union Station or from Westminster Station, it's 15 minutes ride. No stops. So getting from downtown out to a nice visit with an area that's reconverting, it'll be there for you. Let's move a little bit further north. Now, many of you know of an old historical site up in Westminster, used to be called the Westminster Mall. For around 30 to 35 years, this was a regional shopping center. In its early heydays, there were 6 anchors there. Today, one of the original anchors is still there. But people drove from Cheyenne, from Laramie, from Grand Junction, Colorado Springs to shop because it was unique at the time it was there. When the city purchased that site, 105 acres, that site was 70% vacant. It was scary to go in some portions of that mall, and our Silver Sneakers group that used to go in there every day got to the point that they wanted a police escort. So we finally ended up having to take care of it. The big draw was back in the 80s and 90s, but soon, very soon, the downtown Westminster will again be that special place as we have construction of the new downtown, which we've never had, already under construction. And we'll talk about a couple of those in a minute. But what we're creating is an urban district with a vibrant street level that is active and engaging. It will not only be a destination for dining, shopping, and entertainment, but will be a hub for employment with approximately 2,500 residential units on site. So you can live, work, play, shop, do everything you need, and you don't have to get in a car and drive someplace. There will be rail. Maybe not in my lifetime, but there will be rail. Originally, our goal was to work with one developer, called a master developer, to help manifest the vision. And unfortunately, we had gone out to the city, to our residents, and had gone to numerous community meetings saying, what do you want to see in our downtown? And we had some pretty specific ideas coming back from the community. Through these community meetings and these storyboards, we had approximately 50 different meetings and got input from everybody. So for 3 times we tried a master developer. Now if I had wanted to build a 1-story strip mall, I could have built that 10 years ago. But that was not the vision that the city told us about. That's not what they wanted, nor did we, because it's not sustainable. Today we turned that in from a 105-acre, one single developer into 23 different blocks with multiple developers. And we've gotten interest nationally, and in some cases internationally, of people coming in. What we've discovered is that it was truly in order to achieve the vision of unique downtown, to build it block by block, we ended up having to go back into the business of somewhat being a developer, but not developing ourselves. So we are the seller of land. But if you look at the site, we're selling you a building-ready block, all utilities at the streets, curb and gutter, water, sewer, everything's already in place for you. So that makes it a little bit more interesting because people don't have to worry about getting sewer from a long distance running pipelines. We're now working with a developer, or a variety of developers, to create the Westminster downtown. We have a mix of uses already planned for the site and some already in construction. Austin-based Alamo Draft House will be breaking ground on August the 9th. Be their 3rd theater in this area. We're also working with a Minneapolis developer called Sherman & Associates, who has already broken ground. And actually the site on the left-hand side during construction is 255 units with 24,000 square feet of retail on the main floor and underground parking. We will have a developer from this foreign country called Mississippi. Is building a 125-room hotel along with local developers George Thorne and Carl Coble. Developing the product you see on the right is 120 units of workforce housing. 30 to 60% AMI is the control rent, and this is for our workforce, your workforce, police officers, teachers, firefighters. The people who are going to work at this community can afford to live there. We have deals working on several parcels in the downtown. We have an LOI right now for 2 10-story office buildings with a structured parking on the east side of the facility. We're also setting aside 18 acres specifically for parks and public spaces. And in the heart of this, which will be open here in the next few months, a 1.2-acre public space in the middle of it. That will be ready this fall, and eventually will host up to 200 events a year, from small community gatherings to large festivals. As I mentioned, the Eaton Street project, which was the one on the right, is affordable housing apartments that are being built in a new downtown. And while this project is a special one, it's not the first affordable housing project, and it certainly won't be our last. Our city is committed to providing workforce housing, which is the same as some people refer to as affordable, but other people think affordable is projects. We're not building projects, we're building community. And as I mentioned to a group earlier this evening, I would ask you please to drive through the downtown and tell me which is the difference between the workforce product and the market rate. I don't think you can tell it. And you certainly can't tell it if you go inside and look at what's being done. Now, you've heard about the Denver metro area is experiencing something called a housing crisis. It's been wonderful to see the growth that we've experienced as a state, especially after a recession from 10 years ago. But that growth has brought a lot along with it, and affordability is one of the big issues for everyone. Housing costs have climbed due to significantly growth in the metro area. It's causing an issue for our citizens who can't afford the increasing rents and housing costs. There are citizens like our teachers, and police force and firefighters, retail workers, restaurant employees, folks doing the everyday blue-collar jobs that can't find a place to live. They have to drive, in some cases, up to an hour and a half to get to a job because they can't find a place in the area where they're living to be able to afford. Ladies and gentlemen, that's workforce housing in our city today. This is Harrison's Park. So why does affordable housing matter for our economy? Because Colorado households today are spending more than 30% of their monthly income on housing means, and there's $2 billion less consumer spending dollars in our local economy because of the cost of housing. Recent estimates from the Colorado Department of Labor show that over 70% of new jobs created in Colorado over the next 10 years will have starting annual salaries of less than $36,000. A salary of $36,000 falls below the income required to afford rent and utilities for an average two-bedroom apartment in the metro area. This is not acceptable, and we have to change it. We know that what we want to be successful in tackling the affordable housing crisis, we have to have strong support from regional partners. So we did just that. We built a task force with our partners and have mapped out a housing plan process to address this growing problem. The city has worked closely with both Unison Housing Partners in Adams County as well as the Jefferson County Housing Authority. We also have partnership with the Urban Land Institute, Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, Urban Land Conservancy, Community Resources and Housing Corporations, and Habitat for Humanity. We also collaborate regularly with our neighbors, and by that I mean other cities that are attached to us and some that aren't. And while we continue to work on the housing plan process we've built and entitled or negotiated, currently we have a total of 609 units of workforce housing either in the pipeline or under construction. In May of this year, the Alto project opened at Westminster Station, which is about a block and a half from the station I showed you earlier. They're in grand opening, and they've already filled 70 units of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Unison Housing today is what used to be called the Adams County Housing Authority. As we move closer to their work, they have decided to relocate their headquarters into the building that they built, which has got about 15,000 square feet of retail on the main floor. This is phase one of a multi-phase project for them to go back in and recreate housing that is anywhere from 30% to 80% AMI and 1 to 3 bedroom units. This is some classy looking stuff that they've finished down there. Not far from the Westminster Station is the historic section of Westminster, the original heart of the city, and it has a character of its own. And this has been building for about 130 years from what people first homesteaded in those areas. It's the home to thriving businesses and residents of all ages and ethnic backgrounds. It's here that you'll find authentic cuisine restaurants, specialty grocers, and family-run businesses that have been around for decades. What you see inside of is Valenti's Deli. It's an Italian market and bakery, and the Valenti family has been a part of the Westminster history for 65 years, serving up authentic Italian cuisine and baked goods. Great cannolis. Go try them. I'm sorry? It's on Bradburn. Well, this particular one's on 72nd, right between Lowell and Pierce. It's also here in historic Westminster where you'll find a rebirth leading to a new generation of new housing construction, shopping center enhancements, streetscapes, park development, commuter train service, all have set the stage for redeveloping this part of the city. This is what will be a major rework of the city, not new earth. Again, this is not just Westminster doing this on our own. This is a collaboration of partners who want to see this area thrive. And since the late 1990s, more than $250 million has been invested in this part of our city, with more than $60 million of private development done by partners out of that 250. Most importantly, the folks who live there and have been there for a number of years, the local businesses and residents, are also getting involved. Go ahead with the other. Just last month, Historic Westminster was host to a 3-day festival called Imagine Westminster. We wanted to create an event with the community in Historic Westminster that would focus on local business, shine a spotlight on our thriving arts scene, and kick off the summer with a family-friendly party. Very much like the barbecues that Brian does around the community here. It was free, just come eat. This wasn't just a city event, but it was a collaboration with the Historic Westminster Arts District, local residents, and city staff. The volunteers from a number of the departments of our staff came in on the weekend to make sure that this was successful, from our Parks and Recs and Libraries group, the Street Division, General Services, the City's Manager's Office, Public Works, Community Development, Economic Development, and including our greenhouse. All were part of that. Overall, it was a great success. Approximately 1,200 residents visited the weekend. We had local restaurants serving up their food, a local yoga studio, but unfortunately they did not bring any goats for the yoga. They were offering free classes and local artists. Most importantly, though, we were able to make this part of Westminster feel like a community and provide reassurance that we had not forgotten them. Now, I talked about some of the key community partners we work with in the historic part of the center. However, we have formed partnerships across the entire city and the region, and we've worked collectively to try to make all this work. Last year alone, our city manager, one person, did personal outreach on behalf of the city to over 100 community and regional partners. I thought I had a busy job, and I'm only a part-time mayor. So he's had to help run the city plus meet with all these groups. But we have monthly meetings, what the city manager does, with Arvada, Broomfield, Edgewater, Golden, Wheat Ridge, Lakewood, North Bend, Federal Heights, Thornton, Brighton, Bennett, and both Adams and Jefferson County. Now, as the mayor, when I became mayor 5 years ago, I instituted a sit-down with both sets of county commissioners, Adams and Jefferson, on a minimum of an annual basis, that we sat down with just them and our city council. But I also do that with all 3 school districts. The Board of Education for all 3 school districts, the superintendents, and us sit down on an annual basis. And if you don't believe me, there's one of them sitting right there that we have sat down with every year for the last 5 years, and it will continue as long as I'm the mayor. We have to work in partnership. We have to understand what our schools are doing and what they need from us as a city. Not every child is going to go to a 4-year college. Not every child needs to go to a 4-year college. We have companies begging for pipelines to replace workers who are retiring and leaving. We have got to convince people that you can earn a living without a 4-year college degree. I started that way. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of programs. What you're seeing right now is an old one of when we opened the trail. So if you go ahead one more, there we go, okay. I want to talk about something I was asked a little bit earlier about inclusivity. In 2015, the Westminster City Council approved the formation of the Westminster Inclusivity Board. What the Inclusivity Board does is envision a community where everyone understands what the city belongs to them and that their participation matters. The mission of the board is to work with the city council and advocate for all voices within the community and to ensure everyone is treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. This started out as a task force to tell us what we even needed, or did we even need a board? And after 18 months, they came back and said, you definitely need one. So the city formed that. In early 2017, after being in operation for only 2 years, an organization called the National League of Cities, which is made up of every municipality in the entire United States, awarded Westminster a second place trophy for inclusivity to a group of people who were volunteers that had been working on this project for less than 2 years. That's how much this has grown and how much it's recognized. As Brian said, we've been very, very fortunate to have people come in and help us and get national attention for what they're doing as a volunteer. 23 people on this board today. They are the reason that we're successful in attracting people to our city, to make sure that everyone understands that regardless of where you're from, what your ethnic background is, what your religion is, you are welcome in the city of Westminster. Some of the things that we've done to help do this is we've developed a Spanish swim lesson program for our youth and adults, knowing that the Latino community is a higher risk of drownings. And this program was featured on Telemundo. Participants from all over the Denver metro area were welcome to attend. You did not have to be a Westminster resident. If you needed to learn how, you come. We'll teach you. We also partnered with El Comercio de Colorado, the first Spanish movie in the park. We had over 1,000 people that showed up for a free movie. We again partnered with El Comercio de Colorado to host the first Westminster Latino Festival. That was done down at Irving Street Library in a small park. It was 2 years ago. We can't hold it there any longer. So this year on the 21st of July, get on the train from Denver Union Station, come to the Westminster Station, and enjoy the Latino Festival, because we moved it there, because we have more space and we have a structured parking garage so you can have a place to park and not tie up the neighborhood. Guys, it's free. The entertainment's free. Now, the food truck's not free. But I would tell you, you can't find a greater community to come into and see all the mix of people who are there being a part of our community. We also have something that you won't find in many other places in the United States, and that's top spin. We have a Hmong community that competes nationally in an activity of their culture called top spin. Now, many of you remember a long time ago, well, there's a couple of gray-haired people in here that do, tops. Small little wooden pieces, had a metal point in the bottom, you threw it off of a string and spun it. That's top spin. But they do it off of a stick and a piece of rope, and that piece is about that big. And the idea is to do just like we used to do with top, see if you can knock the other guy out. We have the last 2 years national champion that is part of the Hmong community in Westminster. And we built a park for them so they could go participate in their culture. And today, they still attract teams nationally coming here for competition. You can't get any better than having people compete with each other. All of these things are pretty cool and kind of nice to do, but let's go on and talk about the kids. What you see is an intern from one of our high schools working for the city of Westminster. The city has interns and apprentices throughout the organization, from unpaid college interns receiving school credit to paid full-time postgraduate interns and apprentices. These positions exist primarily in IT, community development, human resources, the police department, parks, recs, and libraries, and public works. Most notable employees started their career in city and internship programs, and just this year, Westminster launched its new formal high school internship program in partnership with Westminster High School and Bowman Tech through Adams 12. We have partnered with both of these groups, and today we have 10 students that are in a competitive interview process for permanent hiring. The students commit to Westminster for a Wednesday afternoon every week internship for 1 semester. The internships are unpaid, but students receive school credit for their experience. In addition to the on-job experience, the interns offer insight into government in action, where they can make a difference. Even after the semester is over, interns receive ongoing mentorship and coaching from the people they were working with here at the city. Today we have students in the automotive tech, youth programs, video programs, GIS and GPS, equipment and mechanics, horticulture, wellness and fitness, IT, and our cadet program with the police department. As a culmination of their internships, each year we come up with a final project for them. And this year, the GIS GPS intern, Luis Mendez, created a story map explaining the city's water infrastructure and current sewer and water projects. And the internship program graduation ceremony, she played this tape. Don't get me wrong, programs have helped local students, and the city has reaped a ton of rewards. But it's allowed us to better collaborate with the regional school districts. And again, remember, we have 3. We've also been able to address succession for management, been able to pipeline young men and women both coming into the workforce that will hopefully work for the city of Westminster in the departments where we're going to have vacancies. And it's also enhanced our recruitment efforts in difficult to fill hourly, seasonal, and trade positions. This you see is Stanley Lake. It's a part of a regional park that we have, and it's one of the major storage areas we have for water. This is an open space acquisition that we've done for a number of years ago, and it's through partnerships that we've done in realizing that through open space grants from Adams and Jefferson County, through GOCO grants through the state, that we've been able to purchase this area and keep this. A number of years ago, the city made a commitment to our residents that we would keep 15% of our area as open space. We've surpassed that 15%. But we went one step further. We have a total percentage of our city that's 30% undevelopable. So 15% is set aside open space, can have nothing built on it, it's maintained as that. But then you go into our parks, our recreational facilities, our trails, our golf courses. That makes up another 15%. So think about that. 30% of a city that won't be developed and be capable for recreational use for hereafter. And we maintain it. Now, we've slowed down the growth of our open space so that we can better take our funds that we set aside to maintaining that open space. That doesn't mean we go pave trails or we put houses up. But if you don't take care of what you've got, it becomes a weed patch. And every year, we bring in a little group of volunteers. Most of them are about that high. Sometimes they have babies out on the job. Well, we run a goat herd of about 500 goats that come into our open space to eat and take care of noxious weeds. And it's kind of neat, but people come out to watch the goats. Now, let me challenge you with one other thing. There is a story going around that in Stanley Lake we have a monster. It's not a fairy tale. We can prove, because people have found the eggs that the monster has laid out at Stanley Lake. So if you're out in the area, we do these a couple of times a year. We let you know the monster's been in the area, and we challenge you to come find the eggs. Now, these are actually glass eggs made by a local artist, and they're yours. Come find them. We even did one other thing. The Wesley Hills Park is a dog park. And like most dog parks, not everybody is fortunate enough to have their neighbors clean up behind them. So we had a cleanup day. And depending upon how much you picked up, you got a statue of Golden Pooh. We had over 500 people that came out and helped clean up the park. And the top winner had about 10 pounds of dog poo that they picked up that day. And we saw it recently on the internet. The person took it into their office and here was a statue of Golden Pooh. It's just the kind of things we do to try to get people involved. So I'd like to stop, but I want to leave you with two things. Two important things that we as a community, and that means you, have to think about are the challenges for the state of Colorado and the metro area. Housing and transportation. Now, I'm a politician, so I will get political for a minute. And regardless of what some people may say, I do support a candidate for treasurer of the state of Colorado. He's a very good friend of mine. He keeps telling me I can't do political stuff here, but since I'm the mayor, I get to make that choice. So when the ballot comes out in November and the count is total, I hope we are all together at a celebration of our friend Brian Watson being the next treasurer of the state of Colorado. But here's the other part. How many of you think we have congestion in the state of Colorado on our roadways? A couple of you think we have? The rest of you must not drive. Okay. The Metro Mayor's Caucus, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, and our local communities on a statewide basis have been trying for 5 years to get a referred ballot measure coming up. We got within one vote of the legislature putting that to the ballot. We didn't ask them to approve it, we just wanted to get it to you, the voters. Couldn't get it there. So what's going on right now, we have a statewide coalition for only the second time that we've been able to keep this coalition together to support an upcoming issue on the ballot for an increase in sales tax of 0.62%. And what happens with that money is 45% of it will go to CDOT for roadway construction. For the first time ever, 20% of that will go back to your local municipality. 20% of it will go to your counties. And 15% of it will go into a pool called multimodal. The cities and counties can apply to that multimodal piece and use their down payment as matching funds to get grants. You can use it for anything transit related. Bike paths, trails, rail, cars, buses, bridges, it doesn't matter. If it's transit related, you can use that money. Unfortunately, in my opinion, If we are not successful getting that on the ballot and getting it passed this year, there will not be opportunities for transportation increased funding again in the state of Colorado, because we have exhausted our limits of people being willing to get out and work on them. What I would tell you is think about what's coming up. There is not money in the general fund to fund this kind of work. CDOT's primary major piece of work that they have for projects that are critical, this is bridges and roadway, the critical list alone is $9 billion. But if you look at their total project list, it's $54 billion statewide. So we have mayors and the Sierra Club, Club 20 and others from across the state that are behind this ballot measure. That is, we're collecting petitions on signatures now to get it on the ballot in November. Now, in the event anybody is convinced that they would like the opportunity to vote on this, just so happens I have the petitions tonight. And I'll be glad to let you sign them. But you're not signing that you're voting one way or the other. You're just saying, let us get it to the ballot. And then you can sign it up in your home. When the ballot comes at your front door, vote any way you want, but I hope you would think about supporting it. But for my part, I ask you to think about what you can do for your community. You don't have to be a mayor or a council member. I would tell you both the gentlemen sitting over here on my right are people I work with on a regular basis. One of them lives in Westminster and the other lives in that foreign country called Northland. But they understand community involvement. They're both members or former members of the Adams 12 School Board. They're both still involved in their communities. It doesn't cost you anything but time to be involved. Think about what you can do for your community. Brian, that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask three quick questions and open it up for the group for Q&A as well. So first, before we were talking about the difference between wards and districts and how Westminster is unique in that. Talk to us a little bit about that, if you would, please.
Well, Westminster doesn't have a ward. We don't have a district. Again, we're 2 counties and 3 school districts. And it's amazing that we have never had them. Now, about 15 years ago, we did have a ballot measure that went on a local election to ask people if they wanted to convert from a totally at-large to a ward and district. That ballot measure failed about 4-1, because regardless of who you call as an elected official in Westminster, that's your representative. There are 6 council members and the mayor, a total of 7. You call anybody, that's who you are represented by. We are unique, as Brian said. We're one of the few cities in the state of Colorado that doesn't have wards and districts. We've never had them, and I hope we never have them, because we require every elected official to be accountable to every member, resident, or business in the city. And we think it's worked out pretty well, because nobody is off the hook. We also don't have the territorial or parochial disputes about, well, I need this for my district, or I need this, because we're required to work as a body of 7 for everybody.
Love it. What is one of the greatest lessons you've learned in your 38 years of public service?
Why don't you ask something easy? I think that people are really in tune with what's going on around them. We don't take that for granted, but I also think that one of the biggest challenges that we have as elected officials is knowing when to stop talking and when to listen. And we talked about that a little bit earlier, but I think that's a skill you have to learn. Not everybody knows how to sit and listen. We talk a lot, but you not only have to listen, but you have to hear what the people are saying. So for me, that was a big change from being a person who was primarily in leadership roles before I became a council member, to learning that I've got to stop being the person doing all the talking, and I have to sit down and listen to what people are saying. And we do that through our community outreach programs. So we go in with no agenda, do about 5 or 6 of these throughout our community every year, and it's just there to have you tell us what you think, what's going on, what are we missing, because that's the best way to find out where your problems are.
And my last question, what would you like your legacy to be? Your personal legacy?
Hopefully to leave Westminster better than what I found it when I moved into the city in the early 70s. I have a family there, I have children there, and I have grandchildren there. And when I leave office in 21, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. But whatever it is, when I started with the city, we were a small, much smaller city, about half the size, or actually less than half the size, and we're not done growing. But the biggest thing I want to leave with the city is that it is sustainable for the long term. We can afford to provide the utility service, the amenities we have, our open space, our parks, and an affordable community to live in. And I hope to leave that.
Let's open up to the group. What questions do you have? Yes.
At the beginning, you gave a projection for how big Colorado will grow in 2040. I was just curious, the next 5 to 10 years, how big do you think Westminster will get?
So the question is, he gave a statistic at the beginning of how large Colorado is expected to grow by 2040, but specifically, what about Westminster?
Today, we're roughly about 115 to 117 today. I would say in the next 3 to 5 years, we could see as many as 10 to 15,000 added to the city. Am I any bigger than others? No. The influx that I talked about is so big, everybody's got the same problem. Where do I put them? Housing costs are driving a lot of that, but we will see a lot of growth.
What other questions? Yes.
What about marijuana funds that come in? Is that controlled by the state, or where does that money go?
So the question is with regards to marijuana funds, one, where does the money go? And if it does go somewhere, does it go to Westminster in any way?
We don't have any
What?
marijuana.
But the funds from the state, you mean that what the
We
state
don't-
is collecting in terms of taxes?
Okay, so I didn't know that. So you don't have any marijuana?
None
Okay.
whatsoever. No, we banned marijuana when it first came out as a city. That was the direction we had from our residents. We've never had it. What I will tell you is the bulk of the money that comes into the state from taxes from marijuana goes into what's called the BEST grant program. Now that was set up to fund schools. But BEST grants for any school district has to be met with matching funds. The smaller the district, the less the matching funds have to be. The bigger the district, give you an example of Jefferson County, second largest school district in the state, can't qualify for grants because they have to come up with two mix of a mix for the match. So where does it go?
Yes.
Big part of it's still sitting in the bucket called BEST grants. So not a lot's coming into the cities. The cities or counties who have put their own tax on top of what the state has, they are collecting some. But how successful they've been on doing anything with it, I couldn't tell you.
It's really fascinating. Purnima first, and then Chuck. We'll work around to Christina. Purnima?
Honorable Mayor, for your presentation. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned something about international business activities. Could you elaborate on that? And if you need assistance in your relationship or some kind, then perhaps that's something that I would like to know.
So,
If you don't have any international exposure, is there anything you need us to help you with?
So Purnima is the founder of the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce. So her question is with regards to how much international investment and activity do you have in the city, and how could she be more helpful in that regard?
Do you speak Japanese?
No, I speak Indian.
Well, I have a large community in my area that are Sikh. And they are a lot of small business operations. Now, most of that is their funds. But we also have developers that are of the Sikh faith that are coming from outside the United States that are already engaged in a couple of development projects in the city. I've spent a good bit of time with several of our partners from outside the United States, the Consul General of Japan, Canada, and a couple of others. A lot with the Latino community groups that we have 5 consul generals from outside the United States from the Latin countries that are here, and they've been our guests on a number of occasions in Westminster, and we're trying to further develop from outside that. Colorado and the Denver market is just wide open for institutions and organizations and companies coming into Colorado, and it's not all from one area. They're from all over the world that are coming in, and we're seeing a lot of buildup in the metro area. Probably one of the biggest areas where I've seen development coming in for investment from outside the United States on the local level, actually Aurora. They have one of the biggest mixed pots of religion and groups that come in from outside. those communities are very thriving. Ethiopia, all over the place. So it's very big here in Colorado.
You bet. Chuck, you had a question?
A couple things to say. Number one, I grew up in Arvada, so my son did go to Westminster High School. So would you please tell everybody where your light rail is at right now, so they know exactly what's happening? Sure. Is someone still in the old fire downtown Westminster?
So the question is, specifically, can you explain where the light rail is now?
Get out, whether they get off.
You get on and get off. Okay.
Okay. The only station on the B line, which is the last major line that RTD will build, starts at Denver Union Station and ends in Longmont. It is also the only rail line out of all of them that are being built that RTD did not own the right-of-way for. So when you leave Union Station, you come to Westminster, the very first station at 71st and Irving.
Yep.
That's the station,
That's what I said.
right next to Federal.
My other question to you would be this. Starting with the old city of Westminster, which is now calling 80th and Sheridan downtown Westminster, where obviously all that was there. Explain how Westminster has expanded its growth by annexing and growing. If you are next to Stanley High School, you're actually going out around the whole city. You've really grown well.
So the question is, talk to us a little bit how Westminster has grown, specifically using the annexation process, and you've done a good job, but explain a little bit more about that.
All right, so our southern boundary is roughly about 58th Avenue in some portions down toward Arvada. So we're surrounded by Arvada, Denver, North Glen, Thornton, Broomfield. Yeah, I think that's all of them. So our easternmost border is I-25. Our westernmost border is Indiana. And north, you have to get up north of the Orchard, just a little bit south of Highway 7. So we're not a rectangle, we're not a box, we're not a circle. We're an odd shape. We're very long and kind of narrow. But we've been very fortunate. We're not at a point where we'll see much more annexation. What we'll see is some redevelopment. We'll see some private property that has not been annexed in the city, that's primarily in unincorporated Adams County. The only thing that's really accessible to us for any type of annexation to the west would be in Jefferson County, and that's right now is a nature preserve called Rocky Flats. So we go right up to Indiana right now. So there's just not a lot of growth on a horizontal. What we're going to grow is vertical.
Christina, you had a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Very interesting presentation. I retired from the mortgage business last fall after 36 years, and my specialty was first-time home buyer down payment assistance. It still kind of pains me when I look at the barrier to home ownership for first-time buyers. Shortly after I retired, the median price of a house in the metro Denver area hit $500,000. Can go to Colorado Springs and it's about 240. What is the median house price in your Westminster area?
So Christina's question is, what is the median house price in Westminster compared to the average of the metro area of about $500,000?
I don't know that I can tell you exact number for just Westminster. What I'll tell you in the metro area today is over $450,000 for a median price. And the Boulder area is probably closer to $1 million. But what I will try to answer is your cost of housing. Part of what's driven up the cost of housing here is the fact that we can't build condominiums. So construction litigation that was passed here in the state of Colorado several years ago, we've never been able to get it totally overturned. So there hasn't been, in just a little over 10 years, we haven't had a condominium project that's gone under construction that's below about $600,000 to $700,000 per unit. Now, if you're in that kind of an income level, you don't have too much of a worry about it. But what we don't have, and Westminster is a little unique in this, we've been able to move the state just a little bit to try to resolve part of that. Westminster and 18 other communities in the metro area passed ordinances within our city to encourage development of condominium projects, not only in the first-time home buyer market, but in the retirement community market as well, because people like myself, I want to move down eventually. But where do I move? I don't have the product there. The biggest impediment right now to getting condominiums under construction with the ordinances that we pass is not with the builders, not with the developers, it's with the insurance company. To look at a model today, and we've been working on this for several years, and talking to developers, it's about $20,000 per unit just for insurance to take care of potential construction litigation class action suits. Now, you can't file a class action suit in Westminster unless you have 51% of the ownership, not the renters, but the ownership, have to sign on to it, and you have to disclose up front what that potential litigation cost is going to be. Because what we have seen the reverse of uninformed or uneducated people who, and I don't mean that they're stupid or not educated, that they don't understand the liabilities of being on a homeowners association board when they make a decision to go into a lawsuit over defect. If that lawsuit is filed, as a homeowner, you cannot refinance your unit. You cannot sell it. And if you lose the suit, your association is on the hook for the cost, which can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you're a fixed income, you probably can't pay the assessment that they're going to send you, so then the HOA turns around and files a lien on your property to pay for the assessment that you really had no voice in to start with. I know that doesn't totally answer your question, but it's the best I've got today. But we can't get there if we can't start getting units available for home ownership for the first-time home buyer and for the retirees to move down, and then that opens up the whole trickle-down effect of homes becoming available for those ready to move up from that first time.
Okay, Luke, and then we'll get to James.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming tonight.
Sure.
Of all the Front Range mayors, who's your favorite and why?
So the question is, of all the Front Range mayors, who's your favorite and why?
And it can be you.
I will ask you to take this with a grain of salt. The favorite mayor that I have worked with in my 30 plus years just passed away. Steve Hogan from Aurora. Steve and I have worked together when he was the executive director of the Highway Authority up in Broomfield. So I've known him and I've known his wife for over 25 years. And that was not only a professional loss, but a personal loss. I couldn't find a mayor that has served his community more than Steve had and took his community to heart to try to make it better when he left. And he did it with dignity. He left a community that is in good state. Bob Laguerre was just recently elected from the council to finish his term. And most of the stuff that he and Steve are working on will continue at least through 19. And then 19, they'll have to figure out a new mayor. But Steve Hogan was the guy to turn to in Colorado.
I bought a lot of vacant assets in Aurora, and a lot of it because it was Mayor Hogan. Personal friend as well, complete class act, absolute loss. Served his community well. Let's have one last question with James. And
So, on your comment about the cost of housing and the conversation, you mentioned a couple of times the workforce housing. That sounds, at least by name, like a template partial answer to that issue, and maybe part of the development issue as well. And that sounds like it ought to be something that's of interest to other communities throughout Colorado, particularly like ski resorts. So my question is, what's the format? Is there an accepted format for that? Is it a federally funded project? Are there tax abatements associated, tax credits associated with it? How does that work, and how do you qualify if you're one of those members of the workforce? How do you qualify, and do you have to remain qualified? Maybe that's an awful lot of questions wrapped up.
I got
I'm curious.
Okay.
so the question is with regards to workforce housing, putting more meat on the bone and defining it, but also who is eligible for it, and how can other communities potentially benefit from it to help solve the issue?
All right, so James, to your question, there's multiple answers. From the federal level, there are tax credits. 4% and 9% typically is what it is. Most people who go after those tax credits are builders who specialize in workforce affordable housing. Not every builder is willing to go through that process. It's typically about a 3 to 5 year process to get the tax credits even approved for your project. So this adds on to the normal development process. But that's not the only person who has to do the development investment. It has to be private as well. So a lot of your builders will build workforce housing, just like Coble and George Thorne are doing here, and they specialize in that type of a project. They have 9% tax credit on the one being built in Westminster, but they also have CHAFA, and they have some workforce support from us as a city. So we do things on tax rebates. We don't give them cash, but we rebate some of the costs for building permits, but what we don't rebate is water tap. We won't rebate that for anybody because we still have to provide water and sewer. What you have is a very finite community. Now, Westminster is not alone in looking for that. Lakewood has a big project they're trying to push forward for about 200 units at one of their rail stations for workforce housing. And I keep trying to move people away from affordable, because when we go into communities and we talk about affordable housing, people get the wrong connotation of what that means. They think people that can't afford housing. It's not really true. They can afford housing, just can't afford what it costs today. If you are qualified, it's income based. If you go into what's true workforce housing, it's income qualified depending upon the AMI for that particular project. Now, the one that was done by the Adams County Housing has people from 30% AMI to 80%. So there's a workforce base, there's an AMI that's set up for a municipality or a county, depending on where you're at in there. Right now, let's say in what's today is Unison Housing, formerly Adams County, let's say in that part of Westminster, the average median income is $65,000, just pick a number. So in order to have that qualified, they have to be at least 30% or 50% up to 80% of that income is what they have to earn. And then their rent is based upon what they make. You go in and you can move up. AMI changes on an annual basis. So you can stay there from the time you enter, you can live there until you die, as long as your income doesn't exceed those. I think I answered most of it anyway.
Let's give the mayor a round of applause. Thank you. So, for those that have been here before, you know that I like to share my 10 golden nuggets of wisdom from the speaker as I see them. If you don't like them, go get your own nuggets, but these are my nuggets. Okay, number one, by the year 2040, 7.8 million people will call Colorado home. What challenges and opportunities will this present to you? So I'm a big believer that in every challenge that's out there, it also presents a great opportunity for one of you to go rise to that challenge and solve it and to benefit others. Number three, our success has really been based on partnerships since the very beginning. Now that came from Bill Gates, but it applies to all of us. This idea of working together and creating true partnerships to make a difference. Number four, 3 times we tried to secure one developer, and we ended up with 23 developers. So think about that in your business. How often do you try to fit that square peg in a round hole, or thinking you have the answer? You're trying to go get that one answer or that one developer in their case. But through that persistence, and they always say 3 times a charm, well, guess what? It wasn't so much of a charm for them. It was on that 4th time that they realized, wow, there's 23 people out there, 23 opportunities to benefit the community. Number 5, Colorado households are spending 30% of their income on housing alone, which removes over $2 billion of buying power in the economy. Number 6, we have got to convince people that you can earn a great living without earning a 4-year college degree. I truly believe that. Vocational training and everything, there's so many opportunities than going the traditional path. And I don't know about you, but I get really tired of how we measure education success in the state of Colorado or any state. This idea of X amount have to go on to college, and if they don't, then somehow that school is less than. Not so much. I care about, are you a productive member of the community, and are you achieving dreams and benefiting others? Number 7, 30% of Westminster won't be developed. And I just wanted you to think about that for a second. You know, I've traveled, I own assets in 16 states throughout America. This concept of open space that we have in Colorado is extremely unique to our state, and I think benefits so many communities that all of us get to hike in and bike in and enjoy. Number 8, If you don't take care of what you got, it becomes a weed patch. I love that. One of my movies that I like is a movie called The Kingdom of Heaven, and there's this line in there that he says, what kind of man would I be if I didn't improve my land? And I think of land as maybe a small patch, but it could be your community, could be your state, could be your country, could be the world. What kind of person would you be if you didn't at least try to improve what you have? Number 9, depending on how much you clean up, you receive a statue of golden poop. I didn't know that. So my question to you is, where could we use statues of golden poop awards to incentivize people to help make their communities better? Go clean up your community. Number 10, what can you do for your community? And I would encourage each of you again to expand your definition of community. It's not just people that look and act like you. It's not just your side of town. It is a broad world that's out there. And I'm going to give the mayor a number 11 because I thought it was really good while I was up here, the 11th golden nugget, and that is stop talking. Listen. All of us can do that with our friends, families, relationships, business, etc. Stop talking and listen. So with that, I want to thank all of you for being here. We've got a great group of upcoming speakers. On August 9th, we have my friend Brian Cedarwall. He's Pastor B, and he's the founder of the Denver Dream Center. If you don't know about the Denver Dream Center, yeah, I love this guy. Love this guy. Came from LA, and he started these sports activity center for inner city youth, and it's just awesome what he is doing. September 13th, we have Mike Pritchard, who's the CFO of the University of Colorado Foundation. October 11th, we have Julie Clark, founder of Baby Einstein. How many people played Baby Einstein videos for their kids? I did, I'm guilty. I guess it's just you and me who did that, but watched a lot of Baby Einstein. And on February 11th, we have Joe Ossel, who's the CEO and founder of Golf Tech, which is a pretty amazing franchise operation. So again, thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.